Hello, welcome to Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin Poo, and this is episode 248. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Prez, that is at Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how are you doing on this kind of a lovely Wednesday morning?
Yeah, it's took the dog out. It was very nice. I'm in Westchester enjoying the fall foliage here for the holiday. So, I'm doing all right.
You gonna make it up to Terrytown?
Is that where you are?
No, that's where the Knicks are. It's the practice
Oh,
facility
oh
is.
yeah, the famed practice facility. I know. I should. I know every year like the Knicks rent places around like White Plains and Tarrytown and Lower Westchester. So I know they're out here. I first discovered it when I met Langston Galloway at a Smoothie King outside of the New York Sports Club here, where I was getting some
Oh,
shot subs like 10 years ago or whatever.
that's right off of Sawmill, isn't it?
Yeah,
That New York
yeah,
Sports Club. Yeah, I know where it's at.
yeah. Him and his lady were enjoying a smoothie, and they were very nice.
Good to hear. Good guy,
Nick
Langston.
Legend, shout out Langston.
Yeah, always. He's a big sneakerhead, by the way. All right. Well, just so you know, few announcements. The Strickland has a YouTube channel, and you should subscribe to it. Leave us a like, maybe even on this video, even if you hate me or Prez, and subscribe to our channel. It helps us out. Obviously, we post these podcasts on there. We also have the Rundown, which is hosted by FBL Sam, and Tyrese at London's Theory on Twitter. They're both on there as well as Jeffrey Rasmussen. So check that out. They come on after each game, break it down, react, take a shit on Julius Randle, all of the above.
The classics.
They play the classics. We also have, and I need to look this up, make sure I have the handle right. But Strickland has now an Instagram, which you can follow.
Oh shit.
So check that out also. That is the strict.land on Instagram. So check that out. Leave us a follow on there. We post all the pregame content, the graphics and all that stuff on there too. And we're going to try and expand that out. So give that a follow. Look out for content on there. We also have a Patreon, which you can subscribe to, which you should subscribe to. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to this podcast right here, Pod Strickland, that I do every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag that comes out every other week that is hosted by Drug Steele. Wow. Doug. Drug Steele. There we go.
Slip.
Yeah. Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug. You also get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod, where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful weekly premium articles by Jack Conley and Matthew Miranda, two of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. There's going with a variety of additional benefits like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day. Whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. So without further ado, let's get started. The Knicks all went 3-2 on a West Coast road trip, which was fairly brutal. Prez once again jinxed any chance. If you were hoping that Tom Thibodeau would be on the receiving end of a pink slip, you were wrong, because Prez once again jinxed the Knicks, or jinxed your hopes anyway, by predicting that Tom Thibodeau would be fired by this Friday. Definitely not going to happen now. Knicks go 3-2 in a road trip. They win road games at Utah and Denver, two places they have been historically awful in. Utah is the 1 seed right now in the West, so okay.
Apparently, we're the only team that can stop Laurie Markkinen.
Yeah, it's true. And then and then they win in Denver, obviously, and they close out the trip strong, beating OKC. And we can see people like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. People are like they're 7-10. Obviously, they're not the greatest team in the world, but they're not like, there are very few pushovers in the league at this point. Very, very
Right.
few.
There's very few true shit teams. It's pretty
even,
much like Detroit.
Yeah, and even then, yesterday they go to Denver without Cade, without Isaiah Stewart, without a few guys, and they go and beat Denver in Denver with Nikola Jokic, with Aaron Gordon,
I didn't
with
even see that. Damn.
yeah, they had the whole squad. But big money Alec Burks showed up. Shout out Alec Burks, friend of the
That's
pod.
right. Yo,
Uh,
if Cade's out, we might see the return of Point Burks.
I don't think so. They got Point and Koja. They still got Point and Corey Joseph going. They still got Ivy. They still got Killian Hayes.
I'm gonna need Dwayne Casey to expand his playbook like
Yeah.
Tibbs. All right.
Talk to Tibbs, the real creative mastermind. Um, but like, I guess zooming out, Knicks are 9-9 overall. Like, I have a lot of problems with Tibbs, but I will say that like my problems now are more so at the point of like their individual subs in games that he makes. That I'm like, why is this happening? But it's like he's actually staggering now, which is amazing. I'm like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this. Um, he has shown some willingness to try Obi and Randall together, which I think is comforting. I like that he's used all three centers of late. And I know Mitch got
Yeah, I
injured
love
in the last
that.
game, but he was using Sims even before Mitch got hurt in the last game, which I love. And like in general, he's just shown a little bit more growth in the stuff that we were very critical of. So I think he deserves credit for that. And, we could sit here and talk about the offensive scheme and all that kind of stuff and, our rigidity on defense. And I think those are all valid criticisms. But I would say through 18 games for Tibbs, I'm like pleasantly surprised by a lot of what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, the bar has always been: is he gonna be one of the worst coaches in the league? Right, the bar is on the floor. Like I don't know who else would be in the like Silas in Houston,
Jacques Vaughn.
Jacques Vaughn. Is there anybody else who's like truly? I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I
Doc
don't.
Rivers.
Oh yeah.
The old guard.
No, Doc. I get what. I mean, as far as old ass coaches go, it's like Doc, Pop. Who else is super old?
Not too many. So that's part of the reason, right? It's like there's
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of younger guys that are coming and experimenting. You're seeing this in not just the NBA. This is happening in the NFL too, where there's a lot of young coaches that are coming in and like, not that they're all great, but you just see that things change, like the
Is
way
my
the league
guy on the
operates change.
Giants young?
Dable isn't young, but he's definitely part of like the younger wave of coaches. Like he's
Or
he's the part of the new creative wave of
Mhm.
minds. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that entails my Thanksgiving NFL update. So thank you, Shwin.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm comfortable saying that Tibbs hasn't been in the dog shit tier of NBA coaches. He's been fine-ish. Like he's still. I'm not gonna say he's a good coach. He still leaves too many very obvious things that literally every coach in the NBA does on the table. He still has way too many just like insane things that he does, but he's doing much less of them than he did at the beginning of the year or last year. So I'm kind of with you. I'm pleasantly surprised. I've been surprised that I mean, they're a little older now, so maybe that's why, but like he's given players a little bit longer rope, the younger players. Deuce has gotten some minutes with the injuries, and there's been a lot of times I just like Deuce will miss like a regular pull-up jumper, and I expect Tibbs to like fling him into the locker room or something, and he just lets him play, and I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. It's like shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think like, look, there's other stuff he's done, right? I'm still flat out surprised, and I truly believe that like he deserves a lot of credit for just playing Cam at the start of the year because he looked terrible in preseason, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I think he deserves credit for that. The Grimes thing is just weird. I don't really understand what's happening there, and I don't like the thing is, I find it really annoying that nobody on the beat actually asked Tibbs about it after Grimes got back in the rotation. But like, I also don't think it's fair to just think, oh, well, Tibbs is being an idiot about Grimes because, like, we don't know. It could be an organizational thing where they were like, we're just going to hold him out for right now because we want to be cautious and we want to get a look at these other guys, right? Like we don't know. So I'm not going to put that on him, but like that is definitely in the weird column for Tibbs.
Yeah, because when Grimes comes in, it's not like he doesn't look like he's getting back into game shape. This man is like, he came in and was pretty much immediately like the best athlete, most in shape person on the team, aside from like Brunson.
Well, he also went from like, oh, he's situational and we want to work his conditioning back to, okay, Cam's hurt, Quentin Grimes is starting now. Like that, like what happened in 2 days? Did like from Friday to Sunday, Grimes went from like, yeah, he's still building himself back to 35-minute like Tibbs starter minutes.
The thing that I thought might be, and again, like this is something that I don't know, a beat. Yeah, I would have to ask or whatever.
Oh, I'm sure they will. They're really
they're on top of it. You know, they're very on top of it. But like, if it's plantar fasciitis, then it can very much really be a day-to-day thing with a lot of variance. So that could be it. But it would be hilariously convenient if the day-to-day management, like his pain lessened up conveniently when Cam was hurt, so he could go in the starting lineup, right? Like it just seems. I mean, it's definitely possible, but if
seems a little
it's
too
a coincidence, if it's a coincidence, then it's a happy one.
And we also got to say this, like, and again, like this is, I'm ready. I'm okay with giving Tibbs and the front office credit here because I think it has to be a joint decision. Just taking Fournier out of the rotation, good. Like, get him out of there. He wasn't doing anything. He's not part of your future. He's irrelevant. Like
Fournier,
yeah, like just get him. They got him out of the rotation. That was the right move. They didn't actually wait that long either. You're like, what? I think they waited 13, 14 games. I mean, we can sit here and be like, why did it even take that long? But generally speaking, that's like a pretty quick decision they made. So I think both the front office and Tibbs deserve credit for that. And like the last part of this year, to me, is Rose. I mean, Randall is its own thing, and we can talk about that later. But like, Rose is the last veteran who is one easy, like should be relatively easy to move given the contract situation and his age and stuff, and two that they just need to move on from because he doesn't really serve a purpose. And I got some stats for you. All right, I got some stats because I've seen a lot of chitter chatter about, oh, IQ can't do. He can't. The units just with him don't work well. All right, here's some knowledge for you. I agree that Quickly, at times, does struggle when he's the only creator on the floor. Guess what? Guess who helps that? Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish helps that. When Quickly is on the floor with Cam Reddish, they played 151 minutes together. They have 119.22 offensive rating.
How many minutes you said?
151.
Okay.
All right? Now, if you take Eric Rose minutes out of that, the sample becomes very, very small. 50 minutes. But in those 50 minutes, Emmanuel Quickly, Cam Reddish, 133.01 offensive rating, 96.04 defensive rating. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they won't sustain a 36.97 net rating. But my point here is, and you can go back, and I'm not going to do this, but you can go back and look at the numbers last year too, when he played with Burks, but no other point guard. Those units were great too. I don't think he needs another point guard on the floor. I think he just needs another guy who can actually attack a defense in some capacity. And like Deuce, bless his heart,
that's not his jam.
Yeah, he's not right now.
He's a short 3-and-D wing right now.
Minus the 3 right now. But he's not that yet. And I actually we haven't seen much of Quickly and Grimes yet together because we just haven't seen much of Grimes in general.
I suspect that would work as well.
Yeah, especially
because Grimes got a little juice now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that you notice if you go through all these lineups, even going back to last year, is the main thing is basically like if Quickly is the only perimeter guy that can get his usage up to like 23, 24, 25, you're going to have a problem. When you put him on the floor with somebody else who can, it's fine. And I think Grimes might be at the level, especially if you put him in against more bench opponent heavy units. He's comfortable. I think he'd be more comfortable getting his usage up, calling his own number. But this is why the Rose thing, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, like Derrick Rose does not matter to this team. If he's comfortable being here as just like I'm a vet and I'm happy to be a vet and we're gonna like do awesome, like that's fine. I'm cool with that. But that should be his role. His role does not. He should not be in the rotation every night. He should not be taking minutes or responsibility, which is a bigger thing to me, away from anybody. Um, like the Knicks have a pretty easy 9-man rotation. And if they want to extend it to 10, they can, and they don't need Derek fucking Rose to do it. I'm sorry. It should be you start Jalen Brunson, you start Grimes, RJ, Randall for the time being, Mitch, and then off the bench you do IQ, you do Reddish, you do Obi, you do I would do Sims, but Hartenstein. And if you want to put Deuce in there so you have 10 guys, cool, go for it. You don't need Derrick Rose. You don't. And like the fact of the matter is, we have enough evidence over the last year and a half or whatever it is that Derrick Rose just doesn't really move the needle that much for them anymore. You know, like Derrick Rose just he doesn't, and that's fine. That's not a criticism on him. Like I still think he can go somewhere and help a team, but the Knicks don't need him, and they've kind of outgrown the need for him, which is the more relevant thing. And it's like that's the final step the organization and Tibbs, so the front office and Tibbs together, need to make. Because I get it, like Derrick Rose is his guy, but it's 2022, bud. Like it's not 2010, it's not 2014, it's not even fucking 2021. All right, it is 2022, about to be 2023. It is time to move on. It is time to move on, and it is time this team commits to the younger players. And by the way, like, guess what? That's not tanking because these guys aren't going to tank. Like, we have enough evidence and statistical proof and data and all these things to show that no, if the Knicks play their young players and they still play Jalen Brunson and they still play Julius Randle a lot of minutes, like they're not going to tank. They're probably still going to be right around where they are now, 500. Maybe they'll even
What
be
is
better.
Rose's little injury?
Like some toe soreness or something. I can imagine this taking much longer than it should.
Yeah, I think what we'll see is like a mini version of what we saw last year, where they encourage him to take his time, and Tibbs is very much all about the like you might not play, but then when you do play, you have an opportunity to, in theory, embed yourself into the rotation. So I think if Grimes keeps this up, because he's looked fantastic, and obviously Cam has looked great, I think you'll see D Rose reduced to that veteran role. Maybe he'll take Deuce's spot as the situational guy if our offense is really like in the mud. And then I don't think they'll end up moving him. I think he'll just stay in that role. And I don't think they'll move him just because I don't think they would. I think they would prefer to have him as the OG to having like an extra second or something like that.
It's also reasonable to be like, if Quick or Brunson got hurt, you'd want Rose to be your third point guard instead of like Deuce.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a legitimate on-court concern that I wholeheartedly agree with. Unfortunately, because my son Deuce, that's not what he does. But
Deuce and a protected first for Peyton Pritchard. Just throwing that out there. That's my deal.
Hey, well, John Hollinger just wrote a column.
I know. I know.
Yeah,
I've been telling you like the Knicks should like think about Peyton Pritchard for going back to like a year.
You've been on the P Rabbit wagon for quite some time since pre-draft.
Man. Him Quickly and Pritchard, they would be fire together in the back.
That was in Stacy's article in that cycle. He wrote about Quickly, Pritchard, and one other spark pluggy guard. It might have been my guy from who's that older point guard for
Riller?
No, same class. Was he on Michigan or Michigan State?
Oh, Cassius Winston.
Yeah, he wrote about the three of them. I don't know what
Cassius Winston sucks. He's probably terrible somewhere.
He's probably in the G League. I know he's bounced around.
He's probably in Uzbekistan.
But interestingly, Hollinger mentioned Evan Fournier as well, and he acknowledged, he's pooped on the Fournier contract several times, and he acknowledged that. But he said that even though he's paid too much. He's still a quality bench scorer and shooter for a contending team that could be had for cheap, which is absolutely true. If you can stomach bad defense for a bench unit for a little bit, then you're not going to find. I mean, I know he wasn't shooting well this year, but like Evan Fournier is going to be able to hit open shots until he dies. Like that's the one thing he'll be able to do. So I could see. I don't know what kind of salary they would take back, but I suspect they'll definitely make calls and take calls, and it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. Because I ranted about this last year, but like every playoff, you see these really good teams will just lose games because fucking some random bench guard just completely shits the bed in terms of can't hit open shots created by their superstar teammate. Last playoff, Grayson Allen. I mean, he's a great shooter normally, but for whatever reason, he just didn't have it. But it's not just the Bucks, and it's not just Grayson Allen. So I don't want to say optimistic, but I would put it at like a 50-50 split for them finding something for him. Because it definitely seems like right now, like Evans being a great soldier, a professional, but he wants to play, right? Like he was the best player on France or whatever. And I think they're definitely going to do the like, oh, we'll try to mutually accommodate your request, like professionally under the radar, whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. But D Rose, I think he's going to stay. Hopefully the context works out because just like you said, the rotation, especially now that you're staggering, it's actually pretty straightforward. The most complicated part about the rotation, aside from the staggering, is just deploying centers and deploying OB Julius front court. But the other stuff is, I mean, like, it's kind of just choose your adventure, right? Like, who's useful right now? Do you need a gigantic guy like Cam? Do you need a closeout full Danny Green closeout package like Grimes, right? You have a lot of options. So hopefully Tibbs leans into that.
Cassius Winston plays for Bayern Munich because he sucks, by the way. All right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Look, I still think like I still really like this Peyton Pritchard idea. I
think P Rabbit to New York.
I think he'd be great here, and I think like this actually ties into the Quickly thing where it's like we've obviously heard some rumors that like the Knicks have listened to offers, which I think is very important to understand that like there's a difference between the Knicks are shopping Emmanuel Quickly and the Knicks are listening to offers.
That's why, as a quick aside, this is why I take editorial umbrage to the idea of the Knicks targeting a first-round pick, which was the language used by The Athletic, because that's accurate in a technical sense. But if a reader reads targeted, they're going to think that the Knicks are looking for a first for Quickly and moving quickly, when the actuality is more they're listening to offers for Quickly, and the baseline for that is some sort of first. Anyway.
Yeah. All I'm saying is Deuce and a protected first for Peyton Pritchard works in the trade machine. But no, I think so. The reason I bring up the Pritchard thing and why I think it's tied to Quickly is I've seen a lot of these, like Begley's mentioned this and Katz mentioned this in his article yesterday, that like, oh, the Knicks have these cap concerns and blah, 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 blah. And if they lock into this team, they're going to be mediocre. And it's like, one, young players get better. So like, we don't like, if you project them to get better, then maybe you're like, okay, we're mediocre now, but we think this team is actually going to improve and get progressively better because these young guys will all get progressively better. That's one thing. The second thing is alleviating your cap crunch and roster logjam by trading actual good young players for future draft capital of some kind is such a loser move. Like, it's such a loser move when we've just talked about, like, one, they've already done the right thing, right? Just stop playing Fournier. So, yes, you still have to deal with that at some point, but you've already alleviated your roster logjam to an extent by just not playing him. The second part is Derrick Rose that we've talked about, which, by the way, that ends at the end of this year. That like what the Knicks can be like, we're done with you because they have a team option for the next year, which they're probably definitely not going to exercise. Okay, you're gone. That's done. No longer a problem. So now, so what exactly is the roster logjam we're talking about now? Oh, the Knicks they have too many guys. Oh, is it Deuce? We need because I don't think that's what people are talking about. Oh, we got to get Deuce minutes. The fuck you talking about? We got to get Deuce minutes. Can Deuce hit a shot first? Like I like Deuce, but can he like do something on the floor before we're desperately trying to get him like on it? Like and nobody is actually arguing that. So I don't understand the roster logjam thing. Like if you just look at it as okay, 1 to 3 are somewhat interchangeable players, right? And 4 to 5 are somewhat interchangeable players. 1 to 3, the guys that actually matter moving forward are Brunson, Quickly, RJ, Cam, Grimes. That's 5 guys. 5 guys for 3 positions is normal. That's very, very normal in the NBA. 4 to 5. Okay, Mitch, Hartenstein, Sims, OB, Randall. That's 5 guys for those 2 spots. And we know the center stuff is very variable, right? Those guys don't need the same type of dedicated minutes that you need for other positions. Point being is, I don't think this roster logjam is anywhere near as serious as serious as people think it is. Now, if you want to tell me that the Knicks have picks in this upcoming draft, and if you want to roster those guys, like okay, fine. Let's say you want to roster these guys. Like there's this weird thing, like I don't know when this started, but if you draft somebody in the first round, that doesn't automatically mean you need to make sure they're in the rotation day one. And actually, I think that's a pretty stupid way to operate, depending on where you are as a team. Now, if you're like the Houston Rockets, yeah, you might want to like make sure your first round picks are in the rotation because why the fuck not, right? If you're a team that's like in the Knicks case, you can agree, disagree, whatever. They aren't trying to just suck. They're not just trying to do some pure rebuild, right? It doesn't make sense to just be like, well, we have to figure out rotation spots for these first round picks right away. No. And the other part of this is because the Knicks don't want to tank and they want to be competitive and they want to make the playoffs this year, giving up quickly for a draft asset to me makes it's not going to happen unless that pick is just so good. Like I mentioned this yesterday. If you're getting a first round pick, like let's say the Warriors call you up and they're like, we'll give you a first round pick for Emmanuel Quickly. I'm not doing that. Like that makes no sense to me. Like I know they're 8-10 right now, but odds are like they're going to make the playoffs. That is not.
That's the kind of tricky thing is the first round pick you would want is not the first round pick you'll get. Nobody's going to give you an unprotected first.
Right. And so like to me, if ultimately what you're essentially saying is we want to get draft capital for Quickly, I get that, but like I think that's actually if that's like what they did, I'd be really pissed off for a few reasons. One, if you want draft capital to use in a star trade, you better have that star trade lined up immediately because you cannot sell me anymore on like, just trust us. We're going to get these picks and then we're going to get a star eventually. Why? Why should I trust that? Like you're telling me we drafted this kid at 25 who is vastly outperforming his draft slot, who, in my opinion, we talked about this before we came on, has been the second most important player on the team this year, responsible for them to being 500. And you want to trade him for a pick in the future that you're going to eventually parlay into a star. No, fuck that. If you want to use Quickly to get a star, you better have that trade lined up right then because it might pain me to trade Quickly, but if you're like, well, we're going to get I'm just going to say it. I'm not saying this would be the trade. We're going to get SGA. Like we got SGA out of it. Okay, fine. That's obviously like a very different scenario versus being like, well, we traded Quickly for first round pick X from this team. And we're eventually going to trade it for some star at some unknown date in some unknown future. That's bullshit. Like, that's bullshit. The second thing that you could justify me on is, okay, the Knicks, let's say the Knicks end up with the fucking 16th pick in the draft. Okay, that's their own pick. Let's say they're like, you know what? We love this kid at 5. We've got our pick. Let's say the Wizards or the Dallas pick conveys, we want to package our two first and quickly to move up for this guy. I'm not saying that trade would that team would pull the trigger or that. I'm just saying if that was available and you're just like, we love this kid in the draft so much, we want to move up and we're willing to give up quickly to move it. I'm okay with that. Like I can
something like that seems way more likely to me.
Yes.
Just because, like you said, like
there's cost certainty to what you're getting. Like
there's cost certainty, and it just lines up with how this front office operates. Because a couple points in a row right now. So like we know this front office detests quote unquote selling low, almost to a fault, if not actually to a fault. So I don't think they're gonna trade Quick, who they know has value, right?
And
to other teams.
West knows has value.
West knows has value, and they've been getting calls, right? Like we know that, and we know Quick's team has told them that they know that as well. So like, I don't think they're oblivious to. They might be oblivious in some respects. Like I'm sure the nerds on the team and the analytics staff are like, he's like a super duper defender, and Tibbs is probably like, he's all right or whatever. He's no Kirk Heinrich. And then like there's a gap. There's a gap in terms of what kind of first they can get versus how they cumulatively probably value him. Now that gap may not be that big, but it matters, right? If you could there might be Leon Rose may say like, if you can promise me a first between 10 and 20, like I'll trade that for Quickly. And other people on the team may be like, no, the average player you're going to get from that pick is not going to be as good as Quickly, nor as helpful in a star trade as Quickly, right? So there may be some differences in that respect, but I think it's debatable. The fact that it's debatable that might be selling low lends me to believe that it's not something this front office is inclined to do. But I do think that they don't intend on punting on the draft forever. And I do think that they didn't do it with Obi, but like, I do think it's reasonable to say, like, if we want somebody from this stacked class, we have to free up minutes for them next year, right? And there's different ways you could go about that. It doesn't have to be trading Quickly. But if you can do several of your objectives, like, we're not going to pick in the top 7 or 8, right? Like, we're probably not. I mean, someone could get injured or whatever, but like, if trading Quickly and, like you said, a pick or two lets you do what you couldn't do last year and get your Jaden Ivey of this class, then I could see that, because you get somebody from this class. You use assets that have perceived countdown clocks, right? If you're really fucking worried about Quickly salary, and if you're worried about, say the Wizards make the playoffs and now all of a sudden you can't use your Wizards pick towards a star deal, you have extra incentive to use that on a draft day trade, right? So there's a lot of things that lead me to believe that they would prefer to do something much later in the season, after the trade deadline, in the offseason, really, than just, like you said, the loserish move of like, oh, we're just gonna trade for some future first that, like the Jeremy Grant deal was for Detroit or whatever. Like, I just can't see it. It maybe some of that is just my inner Quickly stan, but I think really based on how the front office operates, it doesn't make sense. They don't sell low. This isn't what they do. They clutch onto these things until it's too late for the most part.
Yeah, and I think this gets back to another thing too, is like, oh, like they have to alleviate this roster logjam and cap crunch. And it's like, honestly, I think that's a cop-out, because what you're saying is they sign other guys to these contracts that they don't actually want or are bloated and are not worth. And now because of that, you're justifying that they trade Quickly, or they're trying to justify that they should trade Quickly before he has to get extended. And an extension doesn't kick in for 2 fucking years. Like,
also, I don't think he like if there was an open, like maybe he gets more playing time and therefore increases his value, but like, I don't think he would get paid. Like, I know teams know he's good and they would bid on him, but like, what nobody's gonna throw him a $20 million offer sheet. Like,
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Well, I guess 20 million ain't what it used to be, so it's possible, but I don't know. It just seems unlikely, barring a Lordy situation where he gets playing time, and then the team that has him is like, "Oh, yesterday's price is not today's price."
Yeah, I mean, like his minutes are starting to tick up a little bit here. The last, since I guess we can say since Tibbs had his some kind of come to Jesus moment. Since the West Coast trip, he's averaged close to 27 minutes a game, which is pretty much what I wanted going into the season. So cool. Shout out Tibbs. But like the point being is just I think that's a cop out that people are latching onto, and it's a cop out if that's the front office's ultimate logic. Because to me, what that is a cop out on is, well, Mitch's salary isn't that great. Fournier's salary isn't that great. Randall's salary isn't that great, but it's hard to move those guys. So instead of trying to find a way to move those guys, we're going to trade a good player for some unknown draft pick value so that we don't have to pay him. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it just seems so out of character for this front office. Like the way you phrased it just there, like, yes, they are loath to trade those other guys at loss, but like this front office is not the kind of front office that, because it's doesn't want to pull the trigger on a loss, is going to pull the trigger on a loss to solve the fact that they can't pull the trigger. Like, they're not going to create a loss just because they don't want to take a loss. Like, that doesn't. If Tibbs was the GM, he might do it.
Oh, if Tibbs was the GM, we'd already have Donovan Mitchell, and we'd have no
and
draft
John
future.
Collins, and
we'd have no draft future. We'd have no picks left. We'd just be garbage.
Yeah, I can't see it, and I think that, like, Fournier being on the bench and available, I think Randall being slightly less dickish and choosing to do some things differently, even though he still has his faults. Like, guys are going to call about, I don't know if a deal's going to get done about these motherfuckers, but people are going to call about all of them, including Randall. It's just, is there going to be a situation that the front office deems enough of a reasonable low return for these guys, and unobstructive, incoming salary for them to pull the trigger? Like Randall, Randall in these last two games versus Phoenix and OKC, I think that's the kind of like median Randall that teams will be like, huh, because he definitely had lots of moments of like, just, I'm not putting my hand up, I'm fucking not boxing out, I'm not doing whatever. But there was also a couple of times where, like, I expected him to do his little fadeaway, and then he was like, no, I'm actually gonna like possibly bowl someone over and create an offensive foul in my attempt to get a layup, and it works. So if I'm another GM, that's the kind of shit that I want to know he can do. Like, is he gonna take threes, and is he gonna actually attack the rim, or is he gonna like do Kobe stuff? And is he gonna like occasionally play defense if somebody else reins him in and tells him to do that, unlike Tibbs? And I think lately the answer's been yes, not more than no, but more than it used to be. So guys will call. And I really think people are just blowing up the discovery that the Knicks have a baseline price for Emmanuel Quickley into a lot of like Rorschach testy feelings about what the front office's plans might be and all that shit. Like you don't think fucking teams are calling about Cam Reddish right now?
Teams call teams all the time about
every single player on the roster. And if you're the Knicks, guess what? You got to pay Cam, right? Like, how come we haven't seen an article about like, the Knicks have set X price for Cam? I promise you they have. I think
it's funny that, like, I don't know. I just think the way Quickly has been talked about by our entire beat is pathetic. And quite frankly, just shows that they don't analyze basketball. Like, they don't. They just, I don't know how else to say it. Like, they talk about him as if he's like this unimpactful, nice, cute player who has managed to carve out a role for himself on a team that's able to like overcome his flaws. And that's like, does he have flaws? Absolutely, he has flaws. But like, that's also just the most bullshit way to frame it. And it's like, it manifests in ways like this where it's like, look, I'd like Cam. I'm happy. I actually think they should keep him. And I think the way that he's like what he's shown, and we've talked about this since we acquired him,
Yeah,
like
you're
there's a lot
Cam
of
fan.
there's a lot of reasons why like why he's appealing and a great fit in particular for this roster. But like it's just really weird there to your point where it's like not just is there no conversation about like what would they want for Cam, but it's like in that cat speech, he's like, oh, like a Cam extension. And I'm like, wait, hold on. You guys spent the entire fucking offseason talking about how the Knicks were like on the cusp of trading Cam. They're definitely trading Cam. Cam's gone. Cam's not going to be in the rotation. Cam this, Cam that. And now he plays like 15 games at a pretty nice level, and that's it. He's good. And now we have to trade quickly because we might pay Cam. It's all bullshit.
This is what I'm saying. We know this front office is very tight in terms of leaks. The only reason they're talking about IQ is because of the IQ leak, which we know wasn't from the front office. It was from IQ's camp. And somebody probably got confirmation that, yeah, they've had calls for IQ. This is what they're thinking about in terms of early conversations about what his value is like. And I think like, but for the leak from IQ's camp, this would not be a conversation because like we've been saying, they're listening to calls about Cam and weighing that versus extending him. They're doing the same for IQ. They're doing the same for Obi. They're doing it for every player because that's what every front office does. You weigh what you can get for a player versus what your different possible plans are. Like teams get calls and do this for superstars. So of fucking course they're doing it for the guys on the New York Knicks who are not superstars, right? Like it's really like reverse reporting in a lot of ways. It's we have a leak and maybe now he's expendable because we haven't heard about anything else. So it's just very odd. And I think, with West still there and with Tibbs, like you said, finally leaning into the things he likes about Quick, Quick being more decisive and Quick playing defense, minutes ticking up, closing with Quick. So we know Tibbs probably has some affinity for Quick. We know Wes probably loves Quick like his own child.
And I think the other thing too is like one of the reasons. So like if you traded quickly for, just trying to think, like let's say you traded quickly for I don't know. Let's just say some unknown starting caliber wing player. Okay, let's just say that's the trade. I think Tibbs would be fine.
Jay
with that.
Crowder.
Yeah, like not somebody but somebody younger, obviously, like whatever. I think Tibbs would be fine with that. I don't think he like loves Quick to the point where he's like, oh my god, like if he thinks that you're trading him for somebody who can still help him win ball games this year, that's fine. If you're like, hey Tibbs, we took Quick out of your rotation, but we got a first round pick
in 2027.
Yeah, like he's gonna blow his fucking mind. I would be pissed right there with him too. And like I think that is kind of where that's where I just don't see a deal. Like I just don't understand how a deal happens this year. Maybe look, the NBA is weird. Like opportunities arise. Maybe let's say, here's an example. Let's say maybe the Spurs are like, you know what, Keldon's really good, but we need to blow this up even more. We don't really want to have the salary.
It could be fucking anybody. It could be someone we don't even like that much, like Cat. Like, just vibes are fucking weird in Minnesota. Who knows, right? Like,
like if it's something like that, where it's a move where it's at least on paper a move where you can be like, okay, this isn't just about like some future star trade. This is also about we think this player can help us more today and moving forward than quickly does at a position where we have maybe more options, right? Okay, that's fine. I can understand that. I might be pissed about who they trade him for or whatever, but like I at least understand that logic. The logic of just trading for draft capital makes no sense to me. But before we continue, the NBA season is heating up, and there are still so many unknown things to pick from, like who might win the Atlantic Division? Who comes out of the West? I have no idea who'd come out of the West. The Western Conference is a shit show, and your guess is as good as mine. Maybe it'll be our Kings. When I'm looking to get in on the action, I bet with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check this out right now. Everyone can earn up to a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, total rebounds, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. Download the app now, sign up with code TBPN, place a $5 pregame moneyline bet on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code TBPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. I also think I want to talk about this because I think this is an underrated thing. We should talk about RJ, who finally bust out of whatever the hell he was going on, whatever was going on with him against OKC. He had a nice game. Some turnovers. I thought a few of those turnovers were complete bullshit, so I kind of am not that upset about it. Anyway,
yeah, I liked how he looked. He looked a little spry. Not just he had a couple of defensive possessions that he took personally, and he was actually able to do something about it, as opposed to the last 3 weeks of the season, where if another player wanted to do something about it, there was nothing RJ could do. So he had some nice stands versus SGA, who's no slouch. He had the dunk. He just looked a little more spry, so hopefully he's feeling better. The shots had a little more arc. He got back to his one thing I've really enjoyed from him is the floaters that are very close to the rim that he puts like no arc on them and they just like barely go over the rim and go in. I haven't counted them, but I feel like he's made most of those. So he got back to that instead of like weird layups and shit. So I don't know. He's not out of my doghouse yet, but I might have thrown him a treat in the doghouse. I don't know.
That's a nice. So I guess you're a good dog owner. I don't know. No, but I think it's worth talking about this because look, let's be honest. I think he's probably been the biggest disappointment on the team so far.
Yeah.
And look, like I thought the conversation about him being sick was really weird, where it was like people were acting like he was making it up. And I'm like, I'm not saying there are things about your performance that if you're sick, I get. Like I get that you're sucking at shooting and you're sucking at finishing and you have no pop and maybe you can't move very well. I get all that. Like I'm sympathetic to that. What I'm not sympathetic to is why is your decision making garbage? Why are you forcing up shots that you don't need to be forcing up? Why are you simply not even showing your forget missing a rotation or forget sticking with your man because maybe you can't stick with your man because you are physically really under the weather, but you're not even aware of where your man is. You don't even know what the hell you're supposed to be doing. Those are not issues directly related anyway to your sickness. So those are inexcusable to me. So I'm not trying to excuse his performance at all. And those have been issues that the thing is the defensive stuff has been an issue for him even before this reported.
That's what was most frustrating to me as a Knicks fan is, and I was frustrated with other Knicks fans because the game versus Detroit where he scored a lot of points, he was dog shit on defense, and I didn't watch the game live, and it wasn't until after I did the long thread or whatever, and it wasn't until after I watched it, and literally like very few people were talking about it, and as soon as he becomes bad at defense and offense, now it's like, oh, he's sick. Maybe, Maybe, but I don't like. That's not my issue. My issue is he was playing dog shit defense before he was sick, and then
Yeah,
while he was sick, he played even worse because he was like didn't know what the fuck was happening around him.
yeah, and I think it's fair to say the sickness impacted him offensively more than it did defensively because defensively he was already playing at an absolute terrible level. Um, he was better against OKC, like you mentioned, but I bring all this up to say, we're talking about raw cap crunches and roster log jams and all this kind of stuff, and like I think the conversation about RJ is just really weird right now because it feels like people are really overreacting to the last 4 games or whatever before this
Right,
OKC
he's in
one.
my doghouse, but I don't want to like fucking send him to the bench.
Right. But like I think it begs an important question where it's like at what point and like what does RJ need to do? Like what is the minimum threshold he has to hit? And if he doesn't hit these thresholds, like are you looking at him and you're like, you know what? Maybe one way to like solve a cap crunch and a roster logjam is to consider moving him. And I'm not saying like that needs to be the case right now, but one, we know the front office has already thought about moving him in a trade for Donovan Mitchell, which like, the people that are like, oh, like that's so fucked up, like grow up. Like, no, it's fine. Like they thought about trading RJ Barrett for a top
A
15, 20
superstar.
player.
Yeah.
Like that's fine. That's not a big deal.
I think they will consider like this is what I'm saying. Like this front office doesn't sell low. They don't have a superstar. Of course they're gonna continue to listen for fucking RJ Barrett, just like everyone else. Nobody
But I'm not talking about the first thing. But I think and not fans, like not to divorce myself from fans, but like you put a lot of hope in the third overall pick, a guy that you extend at 4 years,
right,
108
right.
million. You put a lot of hope into this, and like again, like I'm not the sickness stretch isn't even it for me, but like offensively, I'm still not that worried about him offensively. Like I don't
No,
think he
I'm
just
not either. Yeah.
I don't think he's just like never going to be able to shoot threes again, which we already saw. I don't think the finishings. I do think the
The
finishing was
finishing was yeah.
very obviously influenced by him being sick. Like
Yes. Everything was short. Everything was
yeah,
short.
everything was short. He's taken weird angles, and it came right off of like a pretty decent stretch of him showing massive improvement as a finisher.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm not that worried about that. But like, I'll tell you the stuff that worries me. The defense, obviously, we talked about
passing.
The passing worries me. We saw some growth in that stretch before.
He had a surprisingly nice passing game versus OKC. A lot of them didn't result in assists, but I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And I thought like a lot of his turnovers came from trying to make plays, which is like, and he wasn't trying to make stupid plays. He was trying to make good plays. And I thought a couple of those turnovers were just bad calls. And I thought another few were just like, okay, you pressed a little bit, maybe too much, but I get what you were trying to do. It wasn't an out of control play. I see the vision. Cool.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'm fine with that. I still think like I'm comfortable betting on the passing comes around to a pretty decent level within like a year or two. I'm pretty comfortable betting on that. But the stuff that really worries me is like, okay, the defense has now fallen off for a second year in a row. I thought he got too much criticism last year for his defensive drop off. And I think this year he's gotten not enough criticism for his defensive drop off. We talked about this yesterday. One thing I would like to see, and we saw some signs of this with Grimes in the starting lineup. His second year in the league, he was not primarily handling the number one wing option on other teams. He has been having to do that the last year and a half or whatever because he's mostly started with Evan Fournier, right? Or he started with Cam Reddish, and Tibbs I don't think he trusted Reddish in some areas. So whatever, he was doing that, right? I don't think that's really what he's best at defensively. I don't think that's what he's good at defensively. I think what he's good at defensively is boring backside rotation stuff, which isn't to mean like, oh, he's going to be some awesome rim protector because he's not. But like he's good at, we've talked about tagging down to the roll man, closing back out to a shooter. Like like even if he's late on closing back out to the shooter, he knows what he's supposed to do. He's executing what he's supposed to do. He's where he's supposed to be. So like I think those are the things he's good at, and that should be the role you want to put him in, which is why I have thought for a long time that like putting Grimes in that starting lineup makes sense. I think Quickly would make sense too, but they're not going to do that. So Grimes is definitely the best option then. I'm fine with that. Like that's one thing to alleviate it, but the defensive stuff is definitely still concerning. Where it's like it's not just like there's just so many instances this year of him like totally falling asleep, or he started doing the Julius thing where like somebody sets a screen and then you fake try to fight over it. You're just like, oh, like I can't get over this screen. It's too
And
good.
then you just don't do anything. You don't impact the play. You don't impact the ball handler or the roller or any other defender on the play. I think I'm a little lower on RJ's. Like he's definitely better, like you said, at like all that boring stuff. But like, I haven't like.
I think you get him back to doing that full time. You get him back to doing that as his primary thing. I think
he'll be solid.
And it'll improve his man-to-man defense because what will happen is he'll only be man-to-man on certain occasions. Like I think what we're seeing basically is he does not have the physical capacity to be a top 2-3 option and guard the other team's best wing player, like and play 35 Tibbs starter minutes a night. Like he just doesn't have that. And guess what? A lot of guys in the NBA don't have that. That's not a big deal. Like even Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, when those guys had to step up their usage to star levels, guess what happened? They weren't guarding the other team's number one option all the time either. Like
I just need him. Really need him to like by All-Star break be in actual like NBA defense shape, which he's not. Like full stop. Like he's not fat. Like he's not. Like sometimes it's laziness when in terms of like getting around picks, but he's also just fucking slow. Like he can't catch up to guys, and he doesn't know how to use his strength on defense outside of like the ball is in front of me and I want to take the ball. Like he doesn't know how to do that, use his strength. So he hasn't been good at pick and roll defense. Even in our good defensive year, he was pretty solid at like help defense, but his pick and roll defense was very eh. And as he's started to have to garner the superior assignments of other players, we've seen more of that. So to what you said, like if you have him not guarding the biggest threats as much, then he's in less pick and rolls, which allows him to minimize that.
And this is like I don't want to blame this on Tibbs because I don't think this is like on Tibbs, but this is something where you're like, okay, maybe he's not the best at getting over pick and rolls and fighting over and drop coverage. And he's so big though. That's a guy you should just switch with, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Just switch more with him. But like the stuff that like really worries me is I haven't seen him fight for a lot of 50-50 balls this year at all. Like I don't see him boxing
he's fucking slow as shit. He's by the time he realizes he has slow reaction time and a slow body. If you combine those two things, by the time you realize A, the ball's on the ground, B, I have to get off my ass and dive for it, and C, oh, that takes a while because I'm 235 pounds. The other team's probably already fucking dunked the ball.
Yeah, I need him to become I need him to get back on the glass, like, and not just get like I know he's getting like 5.5 rebounds right now. Like, I need him to get like real rebounds, not just ones that carry him to him. Like, box your man out, go get contested boards. He actually did that against OKC towards the end of the game. He got a few contested boards, especially he had a one really good offensive possession where he drove, missed a shot, missed a tip, got the tip rebound, and then put it back up for a finish. But like he also got a couple of contested defensive rebounds. So maybe it's about him getting his legs back underneath him. But I think the biggest concern with him,
hopefully,
and this is the thing, is we don't know, like we don't have any concept of what this is you're talking about like he's slow right now. And I think what people need to understand is this is not saying RJ Barrett is fat. It's not saying he's out of shape. But I don't think
he's too jacked.
Yeah, he's too big. He's too big. And that's like if you're that big, if you're leveraging it to your advantage, it's fine. It's a great thing. Like there are dudes that can do that, and there are dudes that do that. Right now, he's not one of them. So I think he needs to seriously consider like, okay, maybe my strength doesn't need to be like literally being a ball of muscle, And maybe what I need to be is something like I understand he wanted like you need to get bigger than you were in college, even though in college like he was already a fucking man. Um, but like there needs to be something like he needs to be more shredded. Like if you just look at him, if you go watch his college highlights, and then you look at him from this year, forget the upper body, just look at him around the waist. He's like so much thicker around the waist, and it's not fat. It's just like why are you built like this? You look like a fucking tight end right now. Um, and he's just way too big everywhere. You can see it when he drives. Like he's never been the most explosive vertical athlete, but it's like way less explosive now than it was even in college, where it's like it felt like he could at least propel himself forward quite a bit when he jumped.
And you
But
see it a lot in the downhill drives because like the speed in which he drives downhill is not very fast. Like he still gets downhill because he's great footwork and super
he's
jacked.
gigantic, yeah.
But like in Duke and early on with the Knicks, there's times he shot through the gap like a fucking goal line running back or something. That's
Mhm.
a thing, right? Like yeah, like you see you see that shit, and now he gets by guys, but he never dusts guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think like he's never going to be the most speedy, fast guy, but like
Right,
he's
right.
slower than he was, and the strength isn't offsetting that. And I actually think it's hurt him defensively, as we talked about too. So it's like one, I want to see him not play it this way. What is he? I think he probably looks like he's like 6'6", 235 or something. 230, 235. I'd like to
Yeah.
see him
He's
closer to
six
like
seven. He's 6'7".
yeah, whatever it is. I'd like to see him closer to like two. I think 220 would be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then but this is the part we don't know. We still don't know if at 220 he gets to that level. Like how does that all play out? Like what is his impact defensively at that point? Is he still does he become a better finisher at the rim? Does he become a more efficient finisher overall? Does he become a better? Does it affect his 3-point shooting in any way? Like we don't know how any of this stuff impacts him. And then the final thing is this: if he doesn't develop any type of mid-range game, right? Is he worth the contract? I don't like. I'm not saying. I think he probably still is worth it because I project that like he gets to like 53, 54 true shooting minimum, plays fine defense, and contributes in enough ways. But like I like without that mid range game, we can talk about the rest of this stuff till we're blue in the face. But without any type of mid range game, there really is no potential for like a star. Really, like I just don't see it. Like you need to have some, like and like so if he gets the ball with 6 seconds left on the shot clock, he can't really create much, right? Like he's either gonna just try and bully his way to the rim and toss up some junk, or take some like horrific three, and that's it. Like he can't drive and pull up from 18 feet. Like that's just not available to him right now. Or if it is, he's not comfortable doing it.
That's why
And
the
that's
defense is so and passing is so important to
yeah,
me because if we're taking that star upside off the table, not saying we are, but if we are, then you damn sure can't leave the passing and the defense off the table because then you are the worst criticisms of RJ, which is a
tunnel
player who
vision.
wants to be a star who doesn't do role player, who is actually a role player but doesn't do role player things, right? Like, and when he's playing good defense and passing, you can live with slightly more limited upside, and he can create his own shot sometimes using his strength, getting to the rim, but it's not like Jalen Brown who can create his own shot at the rim from mid range and three, right? Like RJ's really good at creating his own shot at the rim right now and getting decent shots that way. But beyond the rim,
He did make a
like
pull
if
up
it,
against OKC. Pull up three from against OKC.
yeah, I mean, I definitely want to emphasize that I'm not taking it off the table. He actually hasn't taken anywhere near as many pull-ups this year as he was last year because of his adjusted role. So I don't think we can, and then especially with the sickness, like I don't know, I'm not comfortable taking it off the table yet, but he certainly hasn't shown it or proved it or shown that he's taken a leap forward in that respect like he has like we can come, like you were saying, we can comfortably say he's improved around the rim technique wise. Like we can say that. I'm very confident in that. I'm not super worried about the 3-point shooting. I don't think he's a bad shooter. I think he's a good shooter. I don't think he's a fucking amazing shooter, but like he's gonna be able to at least in spot up and like maybe relocation stuff. He's fine, but the jury's still out on the passing, the defense, and stuff in the middle. It's great that he now has a go-to very short mid-range floater for like 0 to 6 feet, but that's not really a shot creation floater like how you see from Quickly or Trey or Ja, where you could let that thing fly from like the free throw line, because those floaters are harder, and the closer you need to be for your floaters, the less circumstances you have to use it. And again, it's still a really good weapon given how often RJ is close to the rim, but it's not like he can't just be like, I want to put my head down and get to my floater. Like that's not how that shot works. It's a counter, not a go-to shot. So, before the season started, my thesis was basically like RJ can get better, can get a little bit better at any number of things, and it will have great results for his game. But one thing we didn't talk about was like, what is the calculus if he gets worse at stuff? Because we just, historically he had a weird year on defense last year because he had crazy assignments, but I don't think either of us really expected him to get worse at stuff. And also because young players usually just don't get worse at stuff. So like the conversation we had at the beginning of the fucking season where it's like, oh, all he has to do is improve his finishing a little bit and be solid at defense and he'll be fine. And I'll take that. Like, yeah, that stuff is true. But if
he's got to do it,
he's got to do it, and you can't get worse at shit. You can't become a dog shit defender. Like, you can't be bad one-on-one, pick and roll, and off ball. That's literally all the types of defense. Like,
he's got to be better there. I just want to see, like, I don't know. Like, I watched Brunson. Like, there was a play in a game against OKC where there was some kind of loose ball, and it's like RJ was around it, Brunson was around it, and I forget who the fuck, somebody on OKC was around it. Probably Lubin Dort, who's fucking annoying as shit.
He's so jacked, bro.
I honestly hate him. Like he never makes threes anytime I ever watch them. And then against the Knicks, he turns into like fucking JJ Redick.
There's a couple of funny. As an aside, I was watching the game, and I have no idea what Jericho Sims is shooting from free throw. I need to look it up. Hold on. Yeah, okay, so I'm not tripping. He's 78%. I'm like, every time I watch this motherfucker, he switches the free throw, and then every time I look at Sims stats, he's like 50%. But it's good to see that apparently he's on a hot streak now. Okay. Anyway, back to Dort.
No, but I don't remember who it was, but there was like a rebound, loose ball, and it's like kind of right in between the middle of them. And like RJ's probably closest. I think he gets his hands on it first, but whoever it is on OKC dives after it, and then Brunson dives on it, and he gets the ball, and the Knicks get it. But like, and I think he actually got fouled because somebody else dove on top of him. They called it for once. But like that's the stuff. Like, I want to see that stuff. Like, I want to see him play with more fire. Like, I don't know. Like, I just think it feels like I don't even know how to put it. Like, I don't want to say he's playing nice, but it's just like I'm not seeing him play with like an intensity. Like, you don't need to be out there beating your chest and like all this kind of stuff, but like you need to play with some kind of like
competitiveness.
Competitiveness and intensity that affects your opponents. And like look, Quickly's given up, pounds to people. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but like you can see when he's defending guys, especially out on the perimeter, like they're not comfortable. Like they know that like he's like influence them. Grimes, obviously he's a closer physical parallel to RJ. Like you can see how he uses him being fucking thick through the chest to like get right up into guys, take away their space, and you feel him. It's not comfortable playing these guys. Like it's not. Like I don't care how effective the defensive data is and all this stuff. You just watch those two guys. Just watch those two specifically. Watch them play. It is not like opponents are not comfortable playing against them. They are not comfortable shooting over them. They're not even comfortable shooting on them when they have a clean shot. Like you can tell they feel that. And not everybody's going to be as disruptive as somebody else is defensively, right? But like he isn't even at the level that he was last year, let alone 2 years ago. He's got to find that again. He has to get back to that because that is the foundation of him being a good player.
He's got to make people uncomfortable on both ends, right? Like I think that's what it's all about. Like Quickly and Grimes can make people uncomfortable on offense as well. Grimes, when he's getting a running start and attacking a closeout or whatever, or cutting, like you can see the defense be like, oh fuck, right? Which is why he can leverage his passing now so well, because like Grimes is really fast, and when he gets the ball, and he's Grimes is funny. He's still testing the outer boundaries of that ability. Like there was one or two plays where he was like, oh, I'm cutting, I'm going so fast, I'm about to take it up, and someone just clapped his shit. And I'm like, it's those plays where I'm like, okay, a little too much dip on your chip, but I'm not mad at it. And Quickly, we've talked about it, like in the last couple games, he's been more aggressive. Like that corner pull-up he took versus OKC was just like, I was just like, oh shit, like he didn't need to do that. I'm like, damn, you did, like, first of all, that shot was wild, ambitious for where we were, and he was just like, nope, I'm fucking doing it, YOLO. Like we haven't seen that kind of shit for Quickly anywhere near as often since he became a point guard, because he's like, we've talked about, he's trying to manage and balance his like no fucks to give play with like actual point guard play and driving and stuff like that. So, and even Julius, like there's times versus OKC where he's like, these guys are like 50 pounds less than me. Like I'm just gonna just fuck around near the rim and somebody's gonna be open, or I'm gonna get a layup or get fouled. And RJ, it's like even when he scores really well, he's doing so like in the flow of the game, and he's not sending a shock through the opponents, through the team, through their like spine. Like you don't like, he's hitting an open three, he's cutting, he's getting a drive off the pistol action and pivoting to a floater once they cut off the drive, and all those things are great, but like he's scoring, he's not shocking the other side. And you don't have to, everybody doesn't have to do that on offense, but like ideally everybody on your team can do that on both ends. That's really the sign.
There's no spontaneity to his offense.
Right. There's nothing like that's worrying the other teams. Even when he drives, like you can pack the paint and make him go to the floater, and credit to him, he's gotten much better at the short floater now. But like another team will live with that rather than him passing for a three, right? Like driving and kicking, or drawing a foul, which his free throw rate is down, and it's not an accident because teams know the book on him now. So
I think he's just getting a shit whistle, to be honest.
I mean, that is also true at the same time, but I definitely know that other teams are like, just put your hands up, don't jump, and don't jump unless he's driving right-handed, and then stay down, and if he shoots the floater, fine, he's not going to pass it.
Yeah, I mean, the passing is obviously like, if he passes it, it opens up a lot of things for him and for the team.
He has some beautiful passes yesterday.
Well, that's the most frustrating thing with him is he's a good passer. Like he's a good passer.
He always has been when he wants to be.
Right. So he
just never fucking wants to be.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't think this is like the fairest comparison or whatever, but like Grimes comes back against Phoenix. He has 8 assists his first game back. I think RJ's had more than 8 assists once in his career. Like, which is stupid because he draws way more attention than Grimes ever does now anyway. And 2, like he's playing a lot of fucking games. He's playing a lot of fucking minutes. Like it's not a lot
of usage.
Yeah, it's not the fairest comparison, but it is.
It is fair. No, fuck that shit. It's 100% fair. Like, are you kidding me? Like somebody who is capable of doing those passes that he can do has not had 8 assists or has not had 10 assists or whatever. Like it's crazy to me. It's especially in today's NBA where they fucking hand out assists like candy on Halloween. All you got to do is like toss it to somebody and they just wait 10 minutes and shoot a 3 and you get an assist. Like Grimes gets assists because he's not pass first, but he's not a black hole. RJ's a fucking black hole. I love RJ kickouts from the baseline, but it's telling that RJ only does that when it's like a Mamba mentality, like 4-on-1. Like Grimes is very comfortable, just like, oh, like what Tibbs always says, like, oh, I drew 2 to the ball, I'll just move it. Cool. Like with RJ, it has to be fucking triple team, quadruple team, and then maybe he'll fucking pass it.
It's
And
you know what it is. It's the Marbury thing, where it's like I remember like, oh, Marbury, he's got 20 and 8, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Let me tell you, like all those 8 assists he got, they were all assists that he passed only because he couldn't get a shot up, and he saw somebody who that was it was an assist opportunity. He didn't pass because there was an advantage. He passed because there was an assist to be had there. Like RJ is in that mentality right now of like the pass that he makes has to be the assist. Like he can't be like, okay, well, Quick, if I swing it to Quick can attack a closeout, and he'll swing it back to Grimes, and they'll get it. Like it's never, and you don't even need to have a conscious thought of this stuff, but it's got to be something where you're like, okay, there are plays where as soon as you get 2 feet in the paint, you did your job. You did your job. Now let somebody else do their job. And
he has no concept of that sort of team play. I'm just gonna say it. Like if you like, I studied before the season started. I looked at like a zillion Cade Cunningham assists because he was the only other guy I could think of who was jacked 6'6", 6'7", and didn't have vertical pop, but was a huge scoring driving threat. And there's so many times where exactly what you just said, like Cade will, as soon as he hits the free throw line and free throw circle, it's mission accomplished. He knows he's fucked up the other team, and he knows somebody's open and he finds them. RJ, it's telling that his assists don't come from the free throw line. They come from the hoop because it's a last resort. Like you said, it's like, oh, I have no other option here but to jump out of bounds and throw a kick out pass. Unless it's like a very obvious read, like an alley-oop with Sims or something like that. And it's really annoying. He even said he was trying to shoot through his slump. There's no thought to him trying to pass through his slump, right?
Do
which
something
is annoying.
else. Well, it's like this has been this is like my forever point about players. If you shoot poorly, you can still play well. And RJ Barrett doesn't have that thought right now. His thought is, if I'm shooting poorly, I need to keep shooting until I shoot well because that's how I can help the team win. It's like, no, like you can do other things, man. You can do other things. You can get your ass on the glass. Go get fucking 15 rebounds. Go, set up, get 7 assists. Go set guys up. Go set 15 screens. Go do a bunch of these other small things that can help your team win. And look, we're like burying him right now. But here's the good news for him. It's early in the season.
Yeah.
And absolutely. 2, like he's 22 years old. Like the passing thing, like sometimes it takes
there's
guys
plenty of time for that.
Yeah, and there's guys that sometimes it just takes them a while to like have that moment and where they figure it out, where they're like, oh wait, I should pass more. That's what I should do. Like we saw this forever. Like this was a thing for Jason Tatum. Go watch like
this
Celtics
fans.
For
DeMar DeRozan. He didn't turn it on until he was like 27.
Yeah, and like it just takes guys time. It's the question is, 1, do the Knicks believe he will do it? 2, will he do it? And 3, will they have the patience to see it out? And I'm not sure about the latter. I'm not sure about. I mean, in certain scenarios, yeah, I'm sure they'd be happy to wait it out. But like we already know that they are star hungry and they're star thirsty, and that if a deal came around that served their purposes, they would be excited about it. Here's the good news for RJ. Despite his terrible recent shooting stretch, he's still shooting 47% from 2, which isn't good, but it's still much higher than what he's done in his career before this. And it's probably going to tick up because he's probably not going to be deathly ill or whatever the hell is going on with him with the bubonic plague for the rest of the year. So even if he continues being an annoying passer, his finishing will get better. Like he's not going to play at this level. He's not going to keep shooting like shit from 3. He's not going to keep finishing like absolute utter crap for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, what we're burying him about is like upside related. Like he's gonna hit this RJ Barrett baseline of like making his threes, making his layups, and drawing his fouls. That is ultimately why, like, yes, we wish he would pass. Yes, we wish he had a burgeoning mid-range game, but like I don't think either of us are worried about like, is he just going to be dookie on offense? Like, no, he's not going to be bad at offense. We just want him to be fucking awesome on offense.
Yeah, for sure. It's look, I don't want to bury him. I'm not trying to bury him. I just want him to be better, because that would make a lot of things for the Knicks better. I guess we could talk a little bit about the centers the Knicks have, because it's been an interesting West Coast trip. Mitch missed most of it. He came back against Phoenix, wasn't very effective. Came back against OKC, had some nice flashes, hurt his knee, was out for the rest of the game. It doesn't seem like it's super serious, but we won't know. They obviously don't play until Friday, so they have a nice little break here. I just gonna say I continue to just be very out on Mitch, especially because if Randall is going to be here, I think not having him opens up more minutes for Obi, and that is way more important to me than Mitch. But also, I just like, I don't know. At some point, if the team keeps like playing at the same level with or without him, I don't know what to make of that. Like, I get the rim protection, I get offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, box out stuff, but like, I just think that there's the holes he has are so glaring, and given the rest of the roster construction, which seems more like it's not going to really change, I don't think, for right now. I don't know. I think he gets moved at the end of the year. I don't think this team is long for him, but yeah, I don't know. I say this because I just am very impressed with Jericho Sims. I think he has shown a lot of like his energy is really good. He plays with a really high motor consistently, which like is probably the biggest disappointment for me with Mitch, because you can deal with a lot of stuff, and it's not just the motor. It's like the motor is so misguided with Mitch a lot of times. Like every time we played a good team, he's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick up 3 fouls right now because I'm gonna get right up in Giannis's grill," and it's like, I don't know if that's the way you want to defend him, bro. Like, I don't know, and it feels like much, but at some point, I just feel like we're watching the same season over and over again with Mitch, where it's like slow start, slow start. He's gonna round into form in January. We're all gonna be like, "Oh my God, is he making a leap?" Like, wow, this contract is a steal. He'll drop off for a bit. He'll have some up and down performances to close the year, and then the season will end, and that's that. I don't know.
I think I'm a little higher than Mitch on how
Mitch.
he's played than what did I say?
You said higher than Mitch.
Yeah, I'm never higher than Mitch, neither physically nor physiologically. It's to me, it's not that you did acknowledge it. You said you understand the rim protection. So it's definitely a question of trade-offs, like you said, right? Like, to me, I've been super impressed with Sims as well. And it's especially impressive considering we still aren't even taking advantage of his strongest gifts on defense by letting him cook like we did at the end of the Denver game.
I just need to see Sims like jump for like, I would love to be at practice and just be like, just jump for like an hour straight. just do that.
Just like a child watching like a fucking simple toy or something. I think I messaged you about it. His, like, you can teach somebody the technique to jump, right? And like, if you talk to folks who have helped or been around athletes participating in a combine, basketball or football, then there's ways to improve your vert and ways to game the system and blah blah blah. And like, he really is like a elite mechanical jumper. Like, the way he jumps off 2 feet, it's just like what you teach people for a combine. And you add that, like, this is a perfect specimen doing perfect technique, and that's why this motherfucker's teeth be at the rim all the time. It's fucking wild. But he's been super impressive, and we still haven't Let him switch. I know he's got more offensive game than he showed. Like I stand by that. Like in terms of one dribble moves and shit like that. So he's been super super talented. I think Mitch clears on rim protection by so fucking much. There's so many times with Sims and Hartenstein, and again, this is they have their strengths. It is not this where they just can't do anything at the rim. Like Sims, if he gets the momentum to do one of his Superman jumps, then he's fine. Even if it's just like a short, I just need to take one step and then jump. That's fine. But if he's just jumping from like backpedaling or staying put, then he's just a guy with a short wingspan and he's just there and he can't really contest. And Hart is a little bigger, but like it's different when Mitch is out there. Mitch, and we're finally getting far enough into the season that you're starting to see like defensive field goal percentage numbers kind of sort out. And this guy, like you said, Mitch has been out of shape and fucking fouling and all that shit, and he still clears the other two in defensive field goal percentage at the rim by like a huge amount. And I don't like that. To me is the important thing. The offensive rebounding is cool, but like I don't really give a shit about that, to be honest. Like it's nice, but like to me, if our offense being good depends on one guy fucking offensive rebounding, then your fucking offensive scheme sucks. And spoiler alert, ours sucks. So like that's not really a consideration for me. So if we can use Sims and Hart to like diversify our offense, right? And not to say nothing of just Julius and Obi, right? Like, which is obviously like turbocharging your offense, then that stuff is more than enough to, like, if we trade Mitch, I will not, like, despite his gifts at rim protection, in terms of just on the whole, what is good for this team. The good thing is you have options. Like you lose his rim protection, but you gain other stuff, like a lot of other stuff if you move on from him. So I'd be perfectly happy with that, provided that it was a sensible offer. Like you really want to go grab one of those like shitty future first round picks, do it with Mitch, right? Like that, I'll be happy with that. Like because of the advantages gained by playing the other centers or playing small ball. It's different from, you're not talking about the upside of a quickly, right? So go get your fucking future first like that, Leon. I will say the fouling is annoying. His foul rate is back up, and they're always fucking stupid fouls. Some of them are shit whistles, but some of them are just stupid fouls.
I mean, SGA got him. Like here's the book on Mitch is this: if he doesn't bite on the first pump fake, he's going to bite on the second one or the third one. That's the book. That's the book. He's always going to bite eventually, and it's just stupid. It's ridiculous. Like he picked up 2 on SGA in that game where it was like he was right there in front of him, and it's like, Mitch, you're 7'1", you've got a 7'6" wingspan, you have no airspace. Like I hope people are seeing me. Like people are seeing me putting my hands up on YouTube right now. But like you could, like, you're towering over him. Just keep your hands exactly where they are. He's not going to get a shot up. You don't need to jump. You don't need to do anything. And
one thing that's really funny for me for the Knicks is like Sims, Mitch, and Obi are like the most fucking jump happy motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because they all got hops, but and then everybody else is like, then like RJ and Julius are just like, I will not jump, nor will I put my hands up. Yeah. The only people in the middle are like Cam, IQ, and Grimes.
Yeah, and I guess Brunson, but Brunson can't jump, so
Brunson's fine. He's just like, even if he jumps, it's not gonna do anything.
He just can't. He just can't jump.
One day Brunson's gonna like sneakily like weak side clap somebody, and we're just gonna like lose our collective minds.
No, he's not.
He'll get somebody.
It's not gonna happen, bud.
I'm gonna go on Insta and look up his blocks from the last 2 seasons.
It's gonna be like there's gonna be like 2. How many blocks does this guy have? I want to see how many blocks this guy has.
He probably has more than RJ this year.
Brunson has 15 blocks for his career.
3 this year, though. Upside, unlocked. Weak side protector.
No, you know what? We should talk about Brunson because we haven't talked about him at all. He's probably been. We talk about. I think. I don't know. I don't care what people think.
Time out. Real quick.
Yeah.
Brunson has 3 blocks. RJ Barrett has 2.
It's good. It's good stat. Good for RJ. He's really showing up this year.
If RJ pisses me off, I'm gonna tweet that. If he pisses me off on Friday, that's my threat to you, RJ Barrett.
If you're listening to the Patreon portion of this podcast for some reason, um, no, we talk about Brunson. Like, I don't know how people want to rank him. I don't really have thoughts like beyond these two guys. But for me, the next two best players this year that are most responsible for them being 99 of the record they are Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickly. You can tell me all you want about Julius Randle's beautiful true shooting percentage. I don't care. He's still playing like an asshole. He still hijacks the offense. If you don't believe me, go watch the Phoenix game, which was one of the most miserable Julius Randle performances in a long time. And if you think that was an anomaly, I challenge you to go watch the Utah game or the OKC game or any other number of games where, yes, he might be shooting well. He's still taking asshole shots. He's still standing in places that fuck up everybody else's spacing, that fuck up everybody else's shot opportunities. He doesn't box out. He doesn't care on defense. I'm good on Julius Randle. I hope they traded him. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Julius Randle because I've said everything I need to say about him, and I'm not going to change on that. But thank you for having a good game in Denver for once. That was cool. IQ, we've talked about IQ plenty. Jalen Brunson has been awesome. He is currently averaging 20.8 points, 6.7 assists, 3.4 rebounds. He's shooting 49.6, 29.7, 88.6 splits from the field. And he's doing all that 59.4 true shooting. I don't really know what to say other than like the Knicks got him for what, 4 years, 104 million. That looks like a fucking bargain at this point.
Declining.
Yeah, declining. That looks like a massive bargain at this point. And
How much is Darius Garland's max?
It's 5,158.
Yeah. So like, if you want to tell me Darius Garland's better than him, cool. But like, 10 million.
Actually, I think Garland is 5,158, but it can be more because I think he has the qualifier to take it up to the. Or it's, sorry, I'll look it up. You keep talking. How about that?
Yeah, sure. No, my main point was like, there's a lot of guys who, like, Garland's really fucking good. That's why he got his max. Tyrese Halliburton is probably going to get a max. Really, really having a breakout year on offense. Blah 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 blah. But like, in terms of just sheer like bargain, like you're getting all-star guard production, and on top of that, you're getting the kind of stuff that plays up in playoffs. Should we ever make it that far, which is shot creation, reliable high percentage shot creation, which doesn't really show up so much in terms of like regular season value. I mean, it does because he saves our asses at the end of many games, but like he's been as advertised and more, and he still has upside. That's the crazy part. He's still shooting whack from three. He's still not taking that many pull-up threes. You can still see him working out like when he wants to take pull-up threes. He's taking more now than he was early in the season. So he's very slowly dipping his toes and getting a sense for the water. But like, he's doing crazy shit, and he's only going to get better. And his contract is literally only going to get cheaper, which is like A+++ by the Knicks front office. Sorry if he's not Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like there's a lot of stuff to criticize the front office for, and I hope that anybody that's listening to this podcast knows that we've done that. But like, I don't think they get anywhere near enough credit for the Donovan Mitchell thing, for the Jalen Brunson signing. And they do deserve credit for not trading for Donovan Mitchell. But like, no, the Jalen Brunson, like people shit on them for that. People really shit on them for, oh my God, they traded a lottery pick for nothing, even though it was never for nothing. And they rolled the dice on Jalen Brunson, who, to be quite honest, had never had an extended stretch of a full season or anything close to that as a starting point guard in the NBA. And yes, you can say he started a point guard for Dallas. Like, we all know that he didn't actually start a point guard for Dallas, right? They rolled the dice that the production they saw in smaller minutes, or not in smaller minutes, but in limited samples of him as a starter without Luka and him playing without Luka, would extend into as a full-time starter, and on a team that didn't have anywhere near as good of spacing as Dallas did. And so far, that bet has paid off. It's been probably the best bet the Knicks have made in a long, long time in free agency. I think I tweeted this out before the start of the year, but my prediction was that Jalen Brunson would be the best free agent signing since Allen Houston, which I still think is pretty accurate. By the way, Darius Garland, 5 years, 193. That can go up to 231 if he makes All NBA or All Star, I believe, this year. So like, yeah, the Brunson, they got his prime years, they got him locked up. They deserve a lot of credit for that. And like, this is the part where the people that want to constantly make excuses for Tibbs need to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Okay? Because he got you. Oh, he needs a point guard to close games. He needs a point. Okay, he has him now. So now you get to be held to a standard. And you want to talk about, oh, the Knicks can't run an offense because they don't have a true point guard. They got a true point guard now. They're running the same exact offense. It works better because Jalen Brunson is a fantastic shot maker. And like, he's a cheat code, basically. He basically just makes shots at such a high clip that I mean, some of the floaters he makes off the glass and shit are insane. Like, I don't
He's
even
got
understand them.
Top 5 most annoying players to defend in the NBA.
Oh,
has
easily.
to be
100%.
And not in that like what the fuck am I supposed to do versus Giannis or Jokic kind of way. It's more just like, if you're another, you got to stay down for like 18 pump fakes and 27 pivots and one possession, and then contest a fucking rainbow floater from like 13 feet somehow, and it goes in all net, and you're just like, that shit. I'd be watching that shit, and my soul drops for the other team, and I'm rooting for the Knicks.
Yeah, and it's just like, and this is not a shit on Tibbs via Brunson thing, but it's like, you can't. We have to like if the front office gets shit on for sticking with Tibbs, for roster logjam, for not cleaning up minutes, to put these all young guys on the floor, for Randall still being here, which all those things, by the way, I think deservedly they should get criticism for. And also, yeah, they did sign Evan Fournier to a contract that now looks negative. They did sign Julius Randle to a contract that now looks negative. But if we're gonna shit on them for all that stuff, they need to get credit for the good things they did. And like, the Brunson signing so far has been a fucking home run, like an absolute home run. And like, look at the talent on this roster compared to what they inherited. And yes, they haven't. Look, no front office is perfect. No front office is going to maximize every single resource they have to the fullest. It's not possible. Okay, every team makes mistakes. But they have, look at the talent they inherited. Look at the talent on the roster now. This is the most talented Knicks team since 2020. Since 2013. No, they don't have a true blue superstar. They are positioned to get one. And guess what? Now you have some confidence, if you're them, having seen what Brunson has done. You have some confidence that, okay, this guy wasn't just looking really good next to Luka. This guy is good in his own right. And maybe now that you've seen that, maybe if Donovan Mitchell's on the market now instead of when he was over the summer, maybe they would be more aggressive about making that trade. Maybe they would be willing to risk more because they'd have the confidence that, okay, we've seen enough from Brunson, and we know if we put him next to another guy who we think is good enough to be the number one superstar on the team or star on the team, that team can go somewhere. And I think they deserve credit for that. And it's now on them to weigh that and make the right decisions moving forward. Because, for all that, I think the immediate direction that they should lean in is definitely, play the young guys more and lean into them and all that stuff. But eventually you're going to have to make a move for a star, right? In some capacity. I just think, I wonder and I hope, and I think they'd probably do, recognize that Brunson might just be good enough to be seen as a second star in all of this.
Yeah, especially when you consider there's some obvious things that are not even related to him. Like, his shooting is taking a dip from 3. Part of that is variance. Part of that is just less assisted threes. He went from 80% of his threes assisted to 50. Obviously, going from playing with Luka to playing with the Knicks will do that. But presumably, if you think he can hoop with another star, that would be one of the things that you chalk up in his favor, right? Like he'll get you could talk about a TS above 60, right? Which is crazy. So like there's a lot of upside in play, and there's a lot of considerations, and I don't think you can dismiss it.
Yeah, I don't think you can. And like this is the tricky thing, and this is why I get it. Like I get why people are upset about they didn't get Donovan Mitchell. And I just want to say I think the Donovan Mitchell conversation has become actually extremely stupid. And it extended to the point that there are people like, oh, ha ha ha, the Knicks made Quentin Grimes untouchable, and like now he's not even playing. And it's like, okay, one, he was injured. What the hell is he supposed to do about that? And two, oh wow, guess what? Quentin Grimes is actually pretty good at basketball. But like the Donovan Mitchell part of this, like people want to shit on them. Oh, they didn't get Donovan Mitchell, and look at what they could have been with Donovan Mitchell, and look at what Cleveland's doing. And it's like, okay, but the trade was never just like, if the trade was literally, I'll give you an example. If the trade was literally give us Emmanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes for Donovan Mitchell, that trade is done. It is done right there. If the trade is those three guys and 1 first-round pick, it's done. If the trade is those 3 guys and 2 first-round picks, it's done. The problem is that trade was going to be all those guys, 3 first-round picks, 2 swaps. He was going to basically...
There was no discount. And this is the same thing with RJ. Like, as I know there's some people out here, probably like John Macri, who are like, look, if RJ was going to be this bad, we should have put him in the Donnie deal and just sold high on him, which I get the sentiment. But the problem is, not smartly for Danny Ainge, like he did not discount the deal for inclusion of any of these players, including RJ or Grimes, did not lower the amount of picks or even other players involved. So like that's really a false hypothetical. So like there's a lot of configurations where another GM would have been like, oh, you're putting in X, I'll take off Y, and then we have a deal.
Right. Every configuration of this deal, the young guys, all that stuff, every configuration of the deal involved at least 2 of those guys and the 3 of the Knicks first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. Like that was going to be the deal. That was the deal Danny Ainge wanted, and that was the deal that he would take from the Knicks, and there was going to be nothing else. If the Knicks did that deal, I don't think that team is headed anywhere. I think that team is maybe having a slightly better year than this one has. I'm not even sure about that. And I think that team is super limited in how they can move forward. And you can tell me that like, oh yeah, well, they still have to find that guy, so shouldn't have they just done it then? I don't know how to answer that question because I guess like if that's how you view it, sure. But if the point is to win a championship, if you're telling me that was the deal, I don't think that deal actually helps you win a championship. I think it hampers you for the foreseeable future from even making moves to win a championship. And the fundamental thing, which we talked about endlessly over the summer, was, and I don't even know, I don't even remember if you agreed with me on this, but like to me, the more important thing was Julius Randle's still here. None of this shit matters. Julius Randle with all these guys, it doesn't matter. You're still working around this fucking what is that, like, what do people say? You got a millstone around your neck. That's what he is. He's a millstone around this franchise's neck. He's sucking up usage. He's just an annoying player, and we have to deal with this right now. It is what it is. But it would be even tenfold more annoying if we got Donovan Mitchell, because we'd be sitting here saying the same thing about Julius Randle, except we'd have no hope for trading him, because we'd be like, well, what can we use to sweeten an offer for Julius? And it's like, nothing, because we have nothing left. Like it's just, I don't know. I think the Donovan Mitchell saga has really taken away from like that the front office did get a really fucking good player this offseason. And not only that, that player addresses the biggest position of need that this team needed. And arguably, more so than even Donovan Mitchell, addressed their biggest hole as a team, which was 2-point shot making.
Yep.
Like, that was their biggest hole. They addressed it big time. And it's a reason why, even though they suck right now at 3-point shooting, that they're like 18th, I believe, in offensive rating as things stand right now. So, like, there's a reason, and that reason is Jalen Brunson's 2-point shot making. And by the way, I would bet on the Knicks 3-point percentage climbing I think RJ Barrett's going to shoot better. I think Quickly's going to shoot better. I think Grimes is going to he's going to shoot because he's going to be playing. And Brunson will shoot better eventually. So I'm not that worried about that. I think this team is pretty much in the place that we expected them to be a quarter of the way or just about a quarter of the way through the season. Are there things that annoy me? Yes. Would I still fire Tibbs because I don't think he makes sense long term? Probably. Yes, not probably. Yes, I would. But like as things stand, I think you have to be pretty okay with where the team is, how they've performed, all things considered. And like obviously, as we just detailed, like there are things that we love, like Jalen Brunson. There are things that we hate, like RJ Barrett's first 18 games of the year. But overall, top to bottom, as things stand, like I think this is about where they should be, where everybody thought they should be. And if this is where you thought they should be and where they should be, why are we crying about why is anybody miserable about the state of this team? Why is anybody miserable about the state of the front office? Why is anybody miserable about this stuff? And
that's
you know,
one thing I've enjoyed.
And if you want to push back on me, be like, why are you miserable about Tibbs? Fine, that's fair. That's fair because Tibbs has actually done plenty of things that I think are good. So maybe I should be less miserable about him.
I've watched a lot of the last, and I know we're going long here. I've watched a lot of the last couple games not live, and it's really reinforced that. Like, our schedule's been weird in that we've played some real shit teams that just, like, I would say OKC is maybe like the one middle kind of level team, oddly. Like, we've played a lot of very good teams and then just teams that are either bad, like Detroit, or just missing focal points like Jokic or something like that. And it's kind of just made for, I think that's part of what's made it a weird evaluation for a lot of teams. So it'll be very interesting to see, like we had OKC and now we'll have Portland. I don't know if Dame's playing, but like these teams that like we know they don't suck, but we know they're not going to win a championship. And even the Warriors, like, yeah, they've been bad, but we know like they were just won the championship or whatever, right? So like, and even Phoenix, like I was frankly like, I was looking at their team stats. They have the highest net rating in the league. And
yeah, their regular season
and I was like,
they're regular season Warriors. They are
they got some shit to work out. That is
them and the Grizzlies are climbing up the shit list of teams
what I just wanted to say about Phoenix was like,
sorry, I had to get that off my chest.
No, it's good. They're definitely still got to prove it when it counts. But like they're a fucking buzzsaw as far as regular season. Like the way people were talking about, like, oh yeah, we lost the game in the third quarter. I was watching the third quarter. It was like 5 minutes left. I was like, when the fuck do we lose the game? Because we're in the game right now. And then all of a sudden, it was just like a fucking thunderbolt right up the Knicks' asshole. And like a lot of it was laziness and some of that, but a lot of it was also just like there were times where the Knicks would make like a minor mistake, like 20 feet from the ball. Jalen Brunson would be like 5 feet too far from Damian fucking Lee, and Devin Booker or Campaign or some random other son would just throw a fucking fastball. And like anytime any Knick messed some shit up a little bit, Phoenix was like, you get a 3-pointer. Oh, you cheated off too far by like 5 minutes. You were 1 second too late on the rotation. You get a 3-pointer. And then obviously when we just do full flat out lazy stuff, then yeah, they get a 3-pointer. So like I watched the Avalanche and some of that was like, damn, like, come on, Julius, come on, RJ, come on, whoever. But a lot of that was just like, okay, this team is I kind of forgot like how much of a well-oiled machine this team can be. And just I'm not gonna lie, I finished. Maybe it's because I knew I had to watch the OKC game, which I knew we won, but I was like not even tripping that much over that game, or even over Julius in that game, to be honest.
Well, I think you should watch that again because you should be definitely tripping over Julius in that game.
Well, it's more because of like that was an annoying Julius game, but like that doesn't even make the Hall of Fame annoying Julius games because he's had some special games. So no, I agree with you in that respect, but like as far as overall expectations go, like you talked about Jalen Brunson's 2-point percentage, like Julius is the most annoying player on this team. His 2-point percentage is up 100 points. Yeah. And he's taking more of them. So like,
well, I mean, this is what we talked about last year, or like before the season, right? Where it was like, even if Julius is still super annoying, he literally cannot be worse than he was last year. Like it's fucking impossible for him to be worse than he was last year.
Right. His shooting's coming around to like that passable 35% level. For all his tendencies, he is convinced that like he should shoot a lot around the rim now, which means he has a really high free throw rate as well. So like, yeah, like things absolutely could be worse, like they were last year. So, you know, it's been a weird eval first 18 games, but like I'm intrigued to see what happens because I don't know what the fuck is gonna happen. Like with Tibbs just tinkering a little bit and a lot of tradable guys and players being like, maybe I could squint and see why another team might pick up the phone and offer some shit, or you know, a little bit of a, you know, guys getting hurt, and like I just don't like last year it was just like watching a train wreck that you knew was gonna happen. This year I'm like, could be a train wreck, could be a new car behind door number 2. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I actually would prefer they don't trade any of these young guys this year. I would, again, as I've talked about ad nauseum, I want to see a full year with like Brunson and look, Randall's going to be here. It is what it is. So Brunson, Randall, and all these young guys filling in around them. And I want to see what that looks like. I want to see what the upside of that group is because I think it's better than what the common consensus, I guess. But like more than that, before you make any major decisions as a franchise, you owe it to yourself to just see these things and like see what different combinations look like. And that way, when you're making decisions and you're making, you know, critical choices, you have the most information at your disposal possible. Obviously, you're never going to have all of the information because it's quite literally impossible, but you need to have more information than the Knicks had from the position they were dealing with in the Donovan Mitchell trade talks. Like that you need to. And not just that, forget the information that you have, the information that the league has. Because if you're playing Emmanuel Quickly a shit ton of minutes next to Jalen Brunson to close games and you're winning a bunch of close games, like now all of a sudden teams might be like, all right, this kid's not starting, but he is closing all these games and he's done it now for 3 years and he's done it a variety. Like you're changing how he looks now. Oh, Cam Reddish, he's playing 22 minutes, 23 minutes a night and he looks really good. What does that mean? Like you're changing not just your like how you perceive these guys and your information of these guys, but their perception around the league. And so when you're making trades and when you're making these critical choices, you're operating from a much more of a position of strength and much more of just a position of knowledge than you were this offseason when it felt like weekends, like again, and this is where like I can't blame Danny Ainge for being annoying because it's like, okay, I see that all this data for Emmanuel Quickly and Obi Toppin is great and wonderful, but like you're not playing them enough. You didn't even start them when Alec Burks was your starting point guard. You know what I mean? Like you didn't try any of this shit. I think Obi Toppin could work at the 4 next to another small ball 5, but like I don't know that because you never tried it. So if you want to value him like that, that's cool, but you're not presenting that to me, so I have no idea. The Knicks, at least now, and Tibbs deserves credit for this too, as well as the front office, they're at least now putting these guys in positions that we haven't seen before consistently and putting them in new lineups, new combinations. And like that's super key. And I think if that continues over the rest of the year, are there still going to be nights where I'm like, oh my God, Tom Thibodeau, like please just go away forever? Absolutely. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when I step back from it and I'm not being emotional, like I can accept that. I could live with a season of that, even with my issues with Tibbs, and even if that means Julius Randle is still here, because at least you did the best job you could do within reason. You know, that's all I ask. Do the best job you can do within reason. Like to me, the start of the year wasn't within reason because it's like I don't understand why Evan Fournier is even playing, and I don't understand why Derrick Rose is still here. You get rid of those 2 guys along with everything else they've done over the last 4 or 5 months. I'd be pretty happy with that. And I think most fans would be too.
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited to see what's next because there's possibility of cool things happening based on stuff that's already happened, as opposed to, sure, technically, theoretically, there's always possibility of cool stuff, but it's just wishful thinking, right? Like this offseason, when I told you, I was like, you know, I think Tibbs might play Quickly with Brunson. That was like half informed by like Quickly by Tibbs likes aggressive guards, but that was half just like wish casting, right?
Yeah, right.
And I just happened to like my wish was fulfilled. Cool, but like that's different than now, which is like, oh, he's seeing things work. Maybe he turns over a new leaf, right? Because he got eyes, even though they don't always work. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, especially with the schedule just diversifying a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good place to end it. Prez, let the people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at _Presidente on Twitter, and we're getting to that time of the year. Draft coverage for the Strickland will begin in December. We already got some articles cooking. I think we might get in on this YouTube and Instagram business that Shwin was talking about earlier. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'm very excited. It's a good draft. We'll have at least one pick. Hopefully we don't punt it. So I'm going to pretend we didn't punt it last year and thoroughly imagine all these guys on the Knicks.
Yeah, I got nothing to plug other than all the work at the Strickland. Check out check out the Strickland Instagram, give that a follow, check out the Strickland YouTube channel, and subscribe to that. Help us out. That is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. And I will see you on Monday.